have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Wednesday, shout out to Derek Schultz, who was outstanding as he always is in here yesterday for me. Thank you, Derek, for that. I know everybody had an outstanding day with Derek from 3 until 6. And we will try to uphold the tradition here on a Wednesday. I see all these rumors. You guys see them too. And none of them make an ounce of sense to me. How about you? Think about these rumors for a moment. All these rumors about these teams now with all this interest. I would tell you this. If I were a team that felt that I needed that level offensively of versatility, in terms of running, I would look into it. I would look into it because, right now you got somebody that's under contract. Right now, you got somebody that's under contract, and I'm talking about in terms of him being Jonathan Taylor staying here because both sides should understand how necessary one is to the other. But they're all playing this game, and of course, the Colts can play it as hard as they want because they have the leverage here. But if I'm other teams, I'd certainly make the call, and I would lowball like crazy. Lowball like crazy. What? I see all this, positional player nonsense. Have you seen the Bears stuff? And sometimes via social media or X or Twitter or whatever it is, you look at a lot of this stuff and you go, where is this even coming from? You think you're going to get higher than a third rounder here? You think you're going to get a positional, productive player at wide receiver? That's what you think? Well, this is where it should start. Well, it's never going to start there. Why would it start there? These teams don't have to do that. It'd be great if you could pull something like that off, but these teams don't have to do that. I mean, because all the dirty laundry between both sides here is all out there in the open. It's all there for you and me and all of us and them to read. So does anybody actually think that they're going to get anything worthy? Because I'll be honest with you right now, if it's as bad as it has looked, and again, there is a long time to come to some solution. It's a long time. What is it, 30-plus days to go? I mean, obviously, you're missing time, and you get a rookie quarterback that you really need all these reps together. It's so important. And I know you guys think a lot of that's BS, but it really isn't. You're going to have days, for example, like we have seen. Anthony Richardson yesterday, anybody that was up there would tell you that it wasn't a great day whatsoever. But others have been better. That's the type of season that you're going to see. That's the type of season you should prepare for. But that's also the type of season to where you would like to have the versatility of having somebody that has been the highest caliber at this position. I know he was injured last year. I know that was an issue. The year prior, he ran all over everybody. I know they didn't go to the postseason, but they screwed themselves. That's what they like doing. That's what they have done. Final 2 weeks of the season, crap the bed. They were in great position. Remember what you thought about that season. The year before last. You had your head hit the pillow on Christmas night, and you thought you had an oh wow feeling. You had a feeling that this is going in the right direction and this is fantastic. I mean, even through all the vax and anti-vax storylines with Wentz, even through all that was going on with the Colts being on in-season hard knocks, you had such a spectacular feeling. And it took all but 2 weeks to flush that right down the toilet, of which this team has been submerged for now 2 years. Took 2 weeks. Think about where you were. 2 weeks and it was over. But you look at it this way. If I were the Colts and I'm Jim Irsay, and again, you had a long time for something to happen, and I'm not certain you can ever truly straighten this out, But for somebody to come to an understanding of what is necessary here moving forward, somehow, some way, and I know I've stated this, I don't see another path other than him playing and getting paid to play. And I know it stinks. It's $4.5 million. It'd be nice if the Colts would reach out and maybe give something a little bit more, maybe a pat on the back. And, next season, it looks as if you may be past that. Let's just say, for example, you are. And again, none of us really know. Let's just say, for example, you are past that. If some of these rumors are true, which they're not, but if some of these rumors were true about how teams would be willing to give up a third rounder, I mean, you gotta take that. You gotta take that in this situation. Now, again, I would rather see him play because it is necessary. Say what you want. I like Deion Jackson a great deal. Evan Hull, I have no idea. And you got a guy with a broken arm that's a backup. And, you bring in the kid from UIndy. That happened yesterday. That's a great story, but none of this does the job. You want somebody that you know is capable of doing the job, that has done it before. And not just done it before. Like Jackson had a good game. I remember having him on after a good game. Was it last year? Hell, I can't remember. All the crap kind of runs together now, but I remember having him on after a good game, had a really good game. But again, Jonathan Taylor has shown you that he can do that again week after week. And he has also done it, not a year ago, he got banged up, but the year prior, he has done it with this offensive line. I mean, obviously the left tackle is not the same. The right guard is not the same. But the three major components of this offensive line that he has done it with, and that is something that has been incredibly lost in the shuffle of all this conversation and all this consistent debate regarding what the Colts should do, what Jonathan Taylor should do, either how they should come together or how they should separate, and the Colts should take absolutely anything for him because you believe he's going to be a detriment moving forward to the team, or you don't and you think it's necessary because of Anthony Richardson. What this is all really covered up is if you had a Jonathan Taylor in the fold right now and you felt solid about, if none of this would have taken place, if Jim Irsay wouldn't have fired off a tweet, and then Jonathan Taylor's representation wouldn't have fired back, and then there was firing back after that, and then everybody got involved, and the Colts, leak it to both Stephen Holder and Mike Chappell about what may happen on the non-football related list. And then Jonathan Taylor firing back about the, hey, my back's not sore stuff. If all this hadn't have happened, if all this big soap opera hadn't have happened, what would we be talking about? Be talking about offensive line. Hey, let's just say it like it is. You got your fingers crossed. You saw that group a year ago. And has anything substantially changed? I mean, they're giving the seal of approval, at least in the short term, in year number 2 to Bernard Ryman. And then you look down the line, you got the usual suspects right here. I mean, really, the only significant change has been to go with, a coach that certainly with his dad, Tony Sperano Jr., his dad, you would think has a great deal of football knowledge, but there's not a lot to go on as far as past history. A nice NFL football-related name. But is this dude going to walk in and wave a magic wand and these guys are going to be like that they were, for example, when Phillip Rivers was here? I mean, they'd be a group that could help out Jonathan Taylor, as at least 3 of them did, going back the year before last. Think about that for a moment. We barely talk about that anymore. I mean, now you kind of just, you whiff right by it. After you talk about, Anthony Richardson can scramble, and he's got a strong arm, and he's got escapability. Well, last year, granted, last year you didn't have a dude with escapability. I guess Ellinger had escapability, but he was well over his head, as we saw most of the time. But you didn't have a dude with escapability whatsoever. But if everybody's coming at you at once, I don't know if it matters. If this group plays at a level in which it did a year ago, that doesn't matter. Does it? You're a rookie quarterback with 13 games. Collegiately, that's going to make that big of a difference. Granted, I like the fact that he at least can scramble, and he's not going to get caught from behind by Blue, the mascot. That's great. But you really don't know. And honestly, the Colts don't know either. I don't really know. I was thinking about this the other day. Why did they not more aggressively address that group? What do you guys think? Because they have a deeply rooted belief in it? Or because, for the most part, they have so much money sunk into it that you kind of have to roll with it right here? I mean, we've seen bits and pieces to where you can look at how this thing has worked out, and let's face it, it hasn't worked out. And that's been a part of it. The dudes that have extensions on that offensive line of note in recent past, from Nelson to Kelly to Smith. I mean, you kind of have to, don't you? What will you end up doing with it? If you ended up changing things up, I mean, that you already got enough of an indictment against how this thing was built in the first place, and then you really got to answer some questions. So they're just in a situation right now, to me, to where you couldn't really do anything, and you kind of have to cross your fingers and roll with it and hope that what I had mentioned prior to are going to be major changes and tremendous flaws that we saw with this group a year ago. You trust that? I mean, I know that I'm speaking to you right now in terms of what do you trust, and with this team and organization, that's something that they're going to have to do. They are going to have to win back your trust. Your trust in what they say, your trust in how they perform. Because in a lot of respects, it's more than just fleeting right now. Some are just kind of done with it until you see. I don't blame you. That's why I say all the time, too. You undersell and you over-deliver. I know it's easier said than done. I just sit here and yak it up. That's what you have to do. And in the process, you hope that you show, with this team, especially offensively, you inject a little bit of excitement, because a year ago, everything offensively went haywire, and that thing was about as exciting as a dual root canal enema afternoon. That's about how exciting that offense was a year ago. I mean, it was really comical. Comical. With all that last year they had talked about was going to work. And again, that is over-promising and under-delivering. You cannot do that anymore. Everybody is sick and tired. You got to show. You know, that's one reason why, in terms of Jim Irsay, people ask all the time, much like me, you know, why do you really want to see this rookie quarterback with the level of inexperience that you talk about on a daily basis here play in week one? Why is that such a big deal to you? You need to inject some excitement. And I like Gardner Minshew a great deal, but for me, all that translates to, if you see him in week one, would be two things that you don't want to see in week one: ineffectiveness or injury. That's what that translates to. Now, I mean, if that dude sweeps in on a chandelier like stinking Zorro and saves the day because, you know, your rookie quarterback goes down and is dinged up or whatever, that's why you get that dude for that. You don't get that dude to start the season in place of the 4th overall selection that you want to be your long term. That's why I feel that way, and I will guarantee you that's exactly why the owner feels that way. Because if you're on my side on this, you're on the side with Jim Irsay because he feels every bit just like that. And that's where you are. And it's nothing against Gardner Minshew. Incredible conversation. And if you could come in to save the day sometime, then come in and save the day. But there is no need to save the day in week number one, unless your day has already been wrecked. And those are two reasons why your day would be wrecked, if that is the case. All right, Colts off. Colts back at it coming up tomorrow. We have two, I believe, coming up at the end of camp. I believe those are 4 to 8 practices that we're going to be a part of at the end of camp. So those will be afternoons. And I guess most of which, like 2 hours, they'll be actually on the field practicing, which will be kind of cool up there. So we'll be up there at the end of camp for you regarding that. And that will be incredibly exciting. And it's funny, I was talking to some folks out in the hallway a little bit earlier, and somebody said, you know what, sometimes you make a lot of sense, and then on the other hand, sometimes you don't. That's what you get here, right? But to me, what I've talked about in terms of Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, and in terms of the Colts as we move forward from right now, like living in the moment, these are very important aspects that cannot be denied. Like, I know when you talk about, well, you got to get back to the point in time when the owner is more silent. Yeah. I don't know if you're ever going to get back to that time, but you get back to the time to where when you see a tweet, you believe in what is being said, and you don't automatically have a counter argument. And that happens when you start winning, and then start winning consistently. There's much less of an impact during that than there is when you have had a season like a year ago that was chaotic. And obviously the owner was in the middle of that. And then you go back to the year before last, the way that season ended. Because it was amazing. You go to bed on that Christmas night after they played with backup dudes, remember, in Arizona. Remember when Wentz found what's his nuts in the end zone, and they end up winning? I mean, remember that moment? That was like it. And what I say is that it, because I know they beat Kansas City last year. That's fantastic. In September. I mean, that gave you a little bit of September juice right there, or early October juice, whenever it was. I think it was September juice. At any rate, you go back to when it really mattered. That's when it really mattered. That's the last time that it really mattered. Yeah, think about where you were at that point in time. And then the next day you have all these national folks saying, you know what, I would really be concerned about the Colts. That's a team that I don't want to see in the postseason. Well, don't worry about it, because they're going to crap the bed and you won't see them in the postseason. That was the last time. You got to give. There are a lot of things you got to do here. And in terms of, getting the owner out of the spotlight, via social media, it's just not going to happen. But again, there's less impact with that when things are going good. Things are believably going good. For example, when you guys are back on the bandwagon, there's much less impact regarding that there. That's the whole baby step process that you have to get back to. And it starts with believability. See if they can do that. See if they can build some believability and then not erase it so easily as we've seen in the past, especially in the past couple of years. It just seems like year after year, there's just always something. I mean, all that stuff you were going through the year before last, remember they're on, Hard Knocks and in season. And it's the whole vax and unvax stuff. But man, right up until Christmas night, you go to bed that night, you feel good. I mean, Carson Wentz could drop back and throw it left-handed again, you'd still feel good. Scramble around, throw it left-handed, throw it between his legs. Whatever. It hadn't been like that since, has it? It's just been chaos. Yeah, some believability. Some winning. Got to start to build this thing. And again, I think in terms of Jonathan Taylor, that's necessary here with this team. And certainly in terms of Anthony Richardson. And you're just going to have to deal with the mistakes, much like he's going to have to deal with the mistakes. I would much rather see his mistakes than see the mistakes of Gardner Minshew. All right, we can talk about that at 239-1070 if you so desire. Email address is jmv at 1075thefan.com. Inside the lounge via YouTube Live. I haven't fired that bad boy up. I will coming up in just a second. Hey, we do have a Backyard Bourbon broadcast, which is on Friday. I will announce the winner coming up tomorrow. I know it's a quick turnaround, but come on. When you get into this, you know that it's going to be a quick turnaround. We go on Friday. I'll announce the winner coming up tomorrow. But that is back again. Heaven Hill Distillery, which is under the umbrella in which Evan Williams is beneath, and others. You got Ford's Garage and my guy Richard. He brings the food down there for you. I believe, did I see Bell's Beer as a part of that too? My man Ryan Stoltz involved in this. I think I saw that on there. Well done. But basically what I'm saying, it's a little bit of something for everybody. Now, this is the one where this is going to be in just somebody's backyard. Personal property, we come, we invade, have a good time. That's coming up on Friday. Now, the final one is going to be an end of a summer, and it's more than just an afternoon in a backyard. This is going to be an end of summer weekend blast. Get to the details on that coming up a little bit later on, too. All right. I know. I watched the game last night. Why didn't they take this guy out? I mean, he's Lively was so terrible. You might as well leave him in there. Man, you threw your catcher at the end of the game. It's funny. And he knows I love him out there. My man Corey is a big-time Cubs fan. Here's what I don't want you to do this, Cubs fans. And you know that I have like in you because my friendship with Tucker Barnhart. But I would rather see the Reds win because I'm a Reds fan, but I do root for Tucker. And I always will. Don't be Cardinal douchey on this, all right? All right, so you put up 20 runs, and I see Mark Dykton in the morning sending out mercy rule or slaughter rule or whatever nerdy stuff that is. Stop it. I didn't hear a damn thing on Monday night. That's what Cardinal fans would do. Cardinal fans would wait for the only opportune time to talk some junk. You didn't say anything on Monday. I don't care if they score 20 runs or 2 runs. The Reds lost, and you know what? They're not this great team. They're not a juggernaut. You saw what they didn't do at the trade deadline. Nick Kroll just said, we're going to go out and get this guy named Mole, this left-hander from the A's, and that's going to be about it. And I don't really blame him, because with this team, I don't know if there was anything out there that is going to, quote, put you over the top. I mean, really, within this division right now, you're looking at the top 3 between the Reds and the Brewers, and the Cubs now have inserted themselves into that. It's going to be the last team standing. And we've seen both the Brewers and the Cubs go out and do some different things, add to their team, and the Reds are going to roll with it. I would much rather see the Reds roll with it and then win with this group over the teams that have brought others in. And then also hold on to their future, because this is never going to be a team that is going to win at all a lot by diving into free agency in the offseason. And, renting a player I wouldn't be down with. I just didn't think there was anything pitching-wise that I felt was a difference maker for this team moving forward. I'm telling you this right now. I don't think it's going to be magic when Hunter Green comes back, or magic when Nick Lodolo comes back, but hopefully it's going to be better than some of these spots in which we have seen. And the Reds didn't help themselves out with a leather yesterday either. They got that thing off to a bad start in the first inning, and that's how it snowballed. I mean, you got 5 runs against your catcher. And I get slaughter rule, and I really want to talk junk to you right now, but I'm not. Well, there's a reason why you shouldn't, because if you do that, especially after the night before when you stayed shut up and didn't say anything, that's when you approach the douchiness level of Cardinal fans that you always speak out against. So be careful with that. And again, it doesn't bother me because my toes are still tapping right now just by being this far into a baseball season and having something to root for, having something to be excited about. I'm good with that. Hey, this is a great formula, by the way, for the Colts. Be thrilled with that. May end up taking your lumps like you did last night, but, give the fan base an injection of some enthusiasm. Give them a reason to believe. Even if you're kind of halfway between the old blueprint and the new blueprint. Talking junk to me. Come on, man. Not one damn word on Monday night. Nothing. That's just, you guys are going Cardinal fans on me. Cardinal fans stay shut up, and then you'll beat the Reds, a team that probably were 90 games under 500, and then give me a bunch of junk about it. But you're not going to break my stride on this. I still feel good regardless. Even giving up 20 last night didn't matter. Same two teams coming up later on tonight. You got afternoon baseball. Brewers 2-1 over the Nationals this afternoon. Also tied at 2, bottom of 4, Guardians, Astros. And middle of 1, Padres and Rockies with San Diego doing some work, I guess, at the trade deadline too. 1-0 over Colorado. All right, 239-1070. We got to get to that, and I got to give a shout-out to Joe Huff, the former IU linebacker. What a great time yesterday that was. I thought I'd been everywhere around Lake Monroe. Or evidently what they're calling it now is Monroe Lake down there, which will never happen for me. But I thought I had been everywhere Lake Monroe. So I grew up near there and, Fairfax, Four Winds, Hardin Ridge, Paynestown, the Causeway. If anybody had ever hung a rope or a vine anywhere off a bank and you can swing off of it and drop into Lake Monroe, I've done it. Yesterday, I went to a spot I'd never been, and it wasn't Mellencamp's place. This place was actually better than Mellencamp's. But a huge shout-out yesterday to Joe Huff with the Roncalli cross-country team down there for a camp-out getaway. That was awesome. But it may have been the greatest spot. I've seen a lot of great spots in southern Indiana. That might be the best right there. But shout out to Joe and Coach Buckley and everybody at Roncalli for providing that, because that was an absolute blast. I knew when I had to get the truck into 4-wheel drive to get back there, I thought, all right, this is going to be good. Let's stick this bad boy in 4-wheel drive. I'd never been there. Pretty awesome. All right, quick break. I think it's off of East Ramp Road or some crap like that. Like, it'd take me a year to find it again, probably. Because all of a sudden, they said, wait a minute, here's the end of the road. Well, there's some gravel right there. Just keep going. But a shout-out to Joe for that. That was an outstanding time. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, bottom of the hour. Bowen's going to be here. He's been staked out at camp all week. Of course, he and Jake, again, coming up tomorrow morning. Kevin's going to join us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. And a lot to get to at 239-1070. The email address, jmv1075thefan.com. Inside the lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you all for joining us there as well. It's HD Radio, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. No, I didn't. Much like I didn't open the show. Well, I wouldn't have opened the show yesterday, but I didn't tweet out on Monday night how Marcus Stroman is hilariously, incredibly overrated and through BP, much like Ben Lively did yesterday. Want to know why? It was like one game. I could have talked junk on Monday. I guess I should have now. But again, when you don't say anything because your team loses, then don't say anything when your team wins. Because when you do that, what you do is resort to the level of the douchiness that we see from Cardinal fans. So Cubs fans, if you want to be Cardinals fans, then so be it. I could have came on Twitter, start talking about Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman, Throman, batting practice. How much does he cost again? How good was he in the first half again? I forgot. You guys, let's revisit that. See, I didn't do that. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. He is the voice of the Colts, taking a day off from his visits from the south side to Westfield at Grand Park. Matt Taylor joins us. Hello, Matt.
Can I tell you my Wrigley Field story?
Is it bad?
Well, it's just this. So this is really quick. 2009, the Reds stink. We're going up there, family and some friends. We go up there to watch the Reds play the Cubs, and the Reds stink. 2009, right? Like Joey Votto and like Nick Massett and Bronson Arroyo and Johnny Cueto, Ryan Hannigan, like that era. And Reds get beat like 10-2. Cubs are really, really good. I think they made the playoffs that year. I'm wearing a Reds hat. I'm wearing a red shirt. And they're just like pummeling me with peanuts and trash and throwing beer in my face. And I'm not being obnoxious. I'm not being annoying at all. Just the Reds fans that were in my section just got drilled by Cubs fans that day. So, yeah, I kind of feel what you're talking about with the Cubs fans there on the north side.
So, well, it's the same reason why I think that Arrowhead Stadium's a dump. Because, so when I go there, I mean, basically, and you remember this too, when we all go there, which seems like years and years ago, for a playoff game, I got pelted with ice balls from the upper deck, and I mean, it was so cold, you couldn't even tell who I was there with. I mean, and people around me were with the Colts, but they didn't have Colts stuff on.
Right.
And plus, you walk around that place, remember, the weather was so bad, it looked like a toilet anyway. It looked like somebody had flushed the toilet and it overflowed in the toilet there. That's exactly what Arrowhead looks like. So I much like you, I think that place sucks too.
Well, Liz, I don't think Wrigley sucks. I mean, I think it's a great place to watch a game. Obviously, the history is there, and they've done a terrific job of updating the ballpark with the modern amenities. And, the atmosphere around the ballpark is, I think, second to none with Wrigleyville. But, yeah, I mean, listen, I've let it go in terms of my of my feelings on Cubs fans. But, yeah, just sitting there minding my own business, not talking junk at all.
Now. Come on.
Reds got destroyed in that game. I'm just there to enjoy a day at the ballpark as a Reds fan and just got hammered by peanuts and concessions and trash. And I was just like, what are we doing? What's going on here? Like, is this really how the whole fan base acts? Which I know they don't, but it's just obviously wrong place, wrong time.
I think some of their fans got so overjoyed and excited about putting 20 up and 5 against the catcher last night that they probably went trough pisser diving after the game there last night, like they normally do, right? You get drunk enough there on Old Style, you start diving into the pisser trough.
I'm not sure how are we supposed to celebrate when you hit a 3-run home run off the backup catcher that's throwing 65-mile-an-hour BP in the 7th and 8th inning?
I texted Tucker this morning. I said, "Hey man, you got better stuff than Bailey does. Let me tell you."
I know. It's like, I mean, at least try to work in a curveball or something off speed, maybe just to kind of adjust the eye level, if you will. But no, that was. I hate games like that when you're down early and the game's over basically by the third inning.
You knew it.
Yeah, you got to play 6 more innings, and it's just.
Well, I saw when Newman tried to make that play at second on that ball, tried to backhand something like he looked like a bad beer league softball player playing second right there. I go, this is going to be a long one right here. So it was.
But you're right. Just one game, and I think still in first place. I don't know if Milwaukee won or lost last night.
Yeah, they're a half game in front. Milwaukee's playing right now. Milwaukee didn't win last night, but they started the day half game. And I will say this, nothing's going to tear me down. I'm not even mad at the nerd for not going out and getting any help here at the trade deadline because I didn't think there was anything out there that would just so stratospherically help this team.
No.
I think it's just up to them to kind of generate enthusiasm. And within this division, Matt, I think it's going to be just whomever is standing when it's all done here. And we'll see. I just don't think you're going to give away some of your major growing up farm system components for something that, logically could break down. And I don't see anything that really could have helped. Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't see anything out there that could have really helped.
No, and I heard your interview last week with Lance McAllister from 700 WLW, and I think you guys were spot on. I mean, this is such a bonus year for the Reds, and just such enjoyment in that fact that, again, I know I'm a broken record on this, but, I mean, just something to look forward to every day. The fact that the Reds are relevant and in a playoff push here in August, I mean, that's something that hasn't existed in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, normally this time, you're thinking about, all right, are they going to lose 100 games? But here they are in first place, and so it's such a bonus year in that regard. You don't want to blow it up. You don't want to sacrifice for the future. But also at the same time, I get why people say, hey, nothing's guaranteed. I mean, baseball is kind of like every other major sport in North America where nothing's given, and just because you're going to have this core and this nucleus back next season doesn't mean you're going to be in a position to make the playoffs then. So, why not give up a Jonathan India, and why not, dip into your farm system to go get a bona fide, extra bat or an extra arm. So I get it, but I like the fact that they're standing pat and rolling with what kind of got them here.
Well, the most awkward part about this is, in terms of how I feel, that feeling is amplified and built off of losing. That's, because you look, we are so in tune to watching this team this time of year suck so bad that this is just an eye-popping, oh, wow moment that really, regardless of the circumstances that go wrong, I mean, let's just face it, if it were a more, what we felt would be more of a serious, not a, having your cake and eating it too, or, whatever that whatever the cliche might be here, as far as everything being gravy right now, then we'd probably be more upset about the fact they gave up 20 last night. But really, in a season like this, where it's such a surprise, and really it's on top of so much losing in the past, I mean, it takes a lot to break you down, I think, at this point with the way this team is played.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, that exists in my household. I mean, my wife will look at me and she's like, when they lose, you don't get upset, like you're not muttering things around the house after the ninth inning when they lose. I'm like, you can't, because you didn't see this coming, and it's just been enjoyable. And like last night, they lost 20-5 or whatever, but it's still only one loss, and they're still in first place.
The Brewers lost this afternoon too. They lost on the road in Washington 3-2.
Fantastic. So I mean, there's nothing to complain about. I mean, even when they stubbed their toe following the All-Star break, it's still, you have to put everything into perspective as far as what this year is, what it was supposed to be, and just enjoy the fact that all of these guys are so much further along than anybody thought they would be, including the front office, right? The front office should be given credit for the plan and being disciplined to stick with it, considering how the last couple of years have gone. But, yeah, you just know that these guys can play even better than what they're showing right now, and I think that probably comes next year. But just enjoy this ride, enjoy this wave, and see how long this young core can take it here this season.
Matt Taylor, who is the voice of the Colts, they're back out at practice coming up tomorrow, and he'll be up there in Westfield, obviously, doing what he does. And, I have equated really a little bit of what we see with the Reds to what is necessary with the Colts, and a lot of what we saw from the Pacers a year ago. And I have put it like this: you undersell it and you over-deliver. And then in the process of playing this season, and nobody's automatically saying, they're going to lose games or whatever. You have to accept that. But in terms of what the Colts are saying and how they're doing it, You undersell it, you over-deliver, and you give the fans excitement and reason to believe longer term. That's exactly what the Pacers did a year ago. That's exactly what the Reds are doing right now at a higher level, but certainly are doing right now. I think that there are aspects of both that would be a formula for the Colts to hopefully go by going into the season.
And I think that's kind of the way they like it. I mean, right now, you kind of already saw that undersell, over deliver motto. I don't know if it was on purpose or it just worked out that way, but I mean we're seeing that already with Shaq Leonard. I mean, last Tuesday with Chris Ballard when he spoke to the media before camp started was, Shaq's going to be out there. He's cleared the physical, but we're going to take it slow. Right, he's going to be doing some individual drills. We're not sure yet about 11 on 11. Don't know yet about full contact. Well. Outside the last couple of days, when they've gone full pads and close to full contact in 11 on 11, Shaq Leonard's done way more than what kind of Chris Ballard led on to last Tuesday, which is all positive, all encouraging things. But yeah, I mean the national media and the Vegas odds don't have the Colts. One of those teams that's going to, compete, if you will, on paper with the Kansas City Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, based on all the national prognostications. And I think the Colts kind of like it that way. I mean, this is kind of a la reminiscent of 2012, Andrew Luck's first year. I mean, when Chuck came in, he had those T-shirts made, the BTM shirts, the Build the Monster, and the power rankings with the Colts dead last at 32, according to ESPN.com. But the T-shirt had the Colts bolded and really big italicized letters there at number 32 in the power rankings. And I think that's kind of where this team is right now in terms of not a lot of expectations outside of the building, but internally they know they've got Pro Bowl players at just about every major position, right? Offensive line. When Jonathan Taylor hopefully comes back off of PUP, he's a Pro Bowl caliber player at running back, one of the best players at his position in the NFL. You've got Shaq Leonard, they've got Zaire Franklin, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackmon. These guys can all play, and then you've got key contributors coming in, and at different levels and different positions. You mean obviously Anthony Richardson is front and center. Josh Downs was drafted. Hopefully soon they can get some of these young, long corners back on the field in Juju Brents and Darius Rush. So, I mean, internally, they don't give a you-know-what about the outside expectations. The Colts are just getting better every single day in training camp. You're seeing that, and I think it's been kind of a methodical approach to the start of camp with Shane Steichen and how he's approaching practice, ramping each day up in terms of length of practice and physicality and intensity. But no, I think this Colts team is going to surprise a lot of people in terms of how competitive they are. And, if they get the quarterback rounded into form, whether that's Minshew or Richardson, that they can do something, man. I mean, it's crazy to think that every year there's always teams that make the playoffs that didn't the year before, or teams that finish worse in their division one year that go on the next year to win their division. I mean, that was the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. So this isn't basketball. This isn't baseball. These turnarounds can happen really, really close because these games are all decided by 7 points or less seemingly. They're all decided by the last 4 minutes of games. So the Colts are just trying to get better in those key areas, and that's one area they really floundered last year was, fourth quarter, closing games out and winning those tight one-score contested games.
What's been your gig up there? Because obviously I don't go out there until they do the late afternoon and early evening practices, which I think are coming at the end of camp, and I'll be up there. But what's been your priorities job-wise up there? What have you been doing?
Well, the crowds have been great. So,
most excited we've ever seen around here, by the way, too, for a variety of reasons. I've listed them, but the most highly anticipated camp that we have ever seen around here. This one.
I mean, the crowd and the atmosphere sort of confirms that. I mean, you're up there with 5 and 6, and I think a sellout crowd is just north of 7,000 fans. We saw that over the weekend on Saturday at the night practice. Doing some MC work and telling people what's going on during camp when practice is physically going on, and then after practice we're doing.
You're like a strip club DJ up there. Is that what you're doing?
I joke I'm the Ryan Seacrest of Colts camp. So I'm up there, answering questions, and again, just kind of transitioning the practice from one period to the next on the PA, which I think is good for the fans to it lets them know, what they're watching, what they can expect, when's practice over, who's signing autographs, all that good stuff. Then after practice, interviewing players, doing media availability, hearing what the players and the coaches have to say after the respective days, and then doing podcasts and radio shows. If I could plug our Colts Audio Network, we do have a camp daily recap after each practice every day. We will talk to, I think, Kylan Granson tomorrow, and then coming up over the weekend, Will Fries is going to join us from the offensive line. I'm trying to think who's going to join us on Sunday off the top of my head.
Was that you and Gorman, too?
Yeah, the Gorman's up there. We've talked to Shaq Leonard. We've talked to Josh Downs. He joined the podcast yesterday. So we intermix the interviews with just kind of a daily recap, myself and JJ Stankovitz from Colts.com. And then you've got all the other good stuff that we do up there as well. Like I said, the official podcast, which drops on Tuesdays. Inside Football with Rick Venturi.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday. That first episode came out yesterday. We're going to do that every Wednesday. So we stay plenty busy up there at camp before, during, and after practice.
Well, I talked to Rick last week, and he's going to come out, I think, as we get closer and closer to the beginning of the regular season when I do a on-site remote, and he's just going to spend much of the afternoon with me right there. So that's going to be outstanding, too. Can't wait for that. So
just tee it up, let him go. That's how it rolls,
man. Yeah. I talked to him. I talked to him last Friday, so we had maybe a 40-minute. This time of year excites him.
No, he was really, really jacked up yesterday. We did the podcast. It's up right now, by the way, Colts.com and Colts Audio Network, anywhere you download your podcast. But he said this was number 42 for him, his 42nd training camp, and that's just where that's where he's in his element, man. That's where he's most comfortable. It's kind of like Shane Steichen in that regard, and he's already taking really good copious notes on Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, and he's got some really good thoughts. Obviously, as a former defensive coordinator and secondary coach, has some good thoughts on what the Colts have going on right now with, as I said, Brents and Darius Rush being out, but that's opened the door for guys like Dallas Flowers and Darrell Baker Jr. to run at cornerback, and he kind of agrees with Ron Miles. Those two have a good history together, and they've coached at prior stops. I mean, I don't think between the two of them, they have seen a younger cornerback room that's going to have to potentially play big-time roles. With Baker, a guy that was basically on the practice squad last year, undrafted free agent a couple years ago from Georgia Southern. Obviously, Dallas Flowers is a D2 guy out of Pittsburgh State. And now these guys might be thrusted into the starting roles if these young guys, these rookies, don't come off of injury soon. But based on the way they're playing and based on the confidence that Gus Bradley and, again, Ron Miles have in them, it might be hard to take them off the field considering all the time they're getting time on task, and they're looking pretty good doing it.
So Matt Taylor, you'll hear him coming up, maybe even see him coming up tomorrow, too. Rest of the time with that nice little drive from the south side of Indy up to Westfield. Every day, getting stuff done. The voice of the Colts is Matt Taylor. Matt, I appreciate you as always, man. We'll see you up there.
You got it, man. Let me know. Looking forward to it.
It's going to be a blast. I promise you that. Promise. See you, buddy.
All right, man. Be good.
It's Matt Taylor right there on the other side. Somebody has sent me a question. And when they send me a question, I feel the need to answer that. Regarding the Colts, I'll do that on the other side. Got a 4 o'clock hour wide open for you regarding doing some calls, Bowen in the 5, stuff to win, announcements to make, stuff I get to do on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. question. You're dead set on Taylor. Well, first of all, I'm dead set on Taylor because he's under contract for a year. If the Colts going to win 4 or 5 games, why do you even want Taylor for a year for 4 or 5 wins? I will tell you this. If you believe that they can have more, you better want Taylor. You might squeeze out another win or two. Yes, I am not high on this team winning over. If I were set the over-under at 6 games, I would not take the over right here. But to me, Taylor helps out. You got to understand what you're doing here. I mean, you're trying to help a rookie quarterback along, and everybody just thinks that you can slot anybody in and help him out, and that is not true. That is not true. Think about a year ago in Philadelphia. Well, Miles Sanders, 1,200 yards, and it was by committee, and look where Miles Sanders is now in Carolina. I'm talking about last year. How much that helped Jalen Hurts out? And Jalen Hurts was further along than what you see from Richardson right now. Plus the fact he's under contract. Now, if you want to question that next year, we'll see how this year goes, then so be it. What did you want a running back for the future? So you want to get a future running back started right now when somebody has played to the level of Jonathan Taylor? And presumably, you're ready to punt the hell out of here and you're number 3? Come on. That makes 0 sense. Under contract this year, utilize him. Then if you feel that he has helped this team, if they surprise and go over 6 is what I'm thinking right now, and you guys are happy and it's fun and you get a shot of life in you from a Colts fan standpoint, then think about next year how much you need him. Or, you know what, if he's injured again and he's lifeless and you can tell he's a stick in the mud and wants to get the hell out of Dodge, then let him get the hell out of Dodge. You really think they're going to get a 3rd rounder out of him? You really think they're going to get a productive wide receiver, a productive offensive player out of him? Come on, man. Quick one, we'll come back. George, I'll begin with you. I got plenty of time for your calls coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Bowen with whatever Bowen is doing on a Wednesday afternoon also coming up, and I'll give you again a little bit of insight how you sign up to be a part of the Backyard Bourbon broadcast. Winner drawn tomorrow. I'll tell you how you sign up coming up on the other side as well. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Colts camp is back, and the future is underway.
We got to be relentless.
For ones on Friday, sign up now, 1075thefan.com. I think you go to the events page or the contest page or not to the Allen page. But you know what I mean. Go there, sign up. We'll announce a winner coming up tomorrow, and we are going to do a Backyard Bourbon broadcast. You know what that means, right? Drink, food, all that you want. We're going to do that coming up on Friday, 1075thefan.com. I had mentioned, too, we have Rick Springfield. No, check that. Yacht Rock Review tickets to give away. That's a week from Saturday at TCU Amphitheater. But we also have Dave Chappelle tickets. What is that, Gamebridge Fieldhouse for Chappelle, I believe, coming up?
Yes, Gamebridge.
Gamebridge Fieldhouse for Dave Chappelle. I've got tickets for that for you as well. You got to listen to win on that bad boy. Now, Corey Kinney, I know that you backed away. You said yesterday I have a lot to say, but I'll stay quiet because I'm sure we will lose tomorrow. And that was Corey talking about the Reds and the Cubs. I don't know if you guys are going to lose to the Reds coming up later on tonight. Cubs are swinging a hot bat. Put up some offense. The Reds pitching, well, and sometimes the Reds hitting too. That wasn't the case yesterday. I knocked it around a little bit. But you could tell they got off to a bad start. Got off to a bad start with a couple of errors. I think actually the Newman one was ruled as a hit, but certainly Stevenson. A couple of errors in that game, throwing errors. Can't play that way. The margin of error for this Reds team, and really, I thought the Cowboy was talking about this. Cowboy may be the best baseball analyst in the business. Because he was talking about how the Cubs were trying to do to the Reds what the Reds have done to everybody else. Get on base and not go station to station, but run your ass off. I don't know if anybody is as good as Jeff Brantley in breaking down a baseball game from an analyst position in Major League Baseball. There's no doubt. Hey, JMV, it's always seemed like Taylor was a smart guy, and this seems like a terrible time to be doing this. I do look at it from both sides here, right? But I look at it from the side in which there's no doubt the leverage is carried by the Colts. But I do wonder, why both sides just can't understand what's necessary here. And what has in this final season, like if you're Jonathan Taylor, you get paid $4.5 million in the final year of your deal. You're probably wondering, all right, why shouldn't I get more? And what Jim Irsay is saying, well, we can give you more. We just want to see you produce this year because we didn't see you produce last year, regardless of what you have done the year prior. I just think in this case, Sebastian, that there's no other play to be made. You think he felt pressure from the other running backs after they had that Zoom call with Barkley and Jacobs doing this? I mean, the Barkley situation was different because he had to sign something then. He just went for the best offer he could. To me, if you're Jonathan Taylor and you want to get paid, at some point you're going to have to play here. And I don't know what else to tell him to do. I don't know what other advice to have other than go out there and play at a high level and make yourself marketable. Well, that's not fair. He's already done it 2 years ago. Look how great that he was. I understand, but the NFL's different. I mean, hell, oftentimes you last 2.5 years in the NFL. 2.5 years may be the average. And what ETN brought up in Jacksonville, you have to diversify your game. Make yourself more useful, and maybe you find a better spot than here. I mean, maybe you got feelings that you're never going to really, truly wash away, and you find yourself a spot, you get paid someplace else next year. I just think the foolishness is all these teams now, or this is from a lot of people that cover the Colts or somewhat cover the Colts or a fan of the Colts and cover them at the same time, whatever, that suggests that you can get a third rounder out of him, or you can get a productive position of need offensive player out of it. Come on now. It's not happening. Not happening. You absolutely have to look. If you're another team, why would you give the Colts anything more than what everybody talked about would be the market value for a disposable position like running back today, even if it is Jonathan Taylor. Think the Bears are going to offer up one of their productive positional players of need? Come on. That's why I think this thing ultimately gets played out as Jonathan Taylor plays. I just don't happen to know, and I don't know who does know, exactly the level of disgruntledness that may be lurking here. I mean, it looks it, don't get me wrong, and you can certainly, by the looks, you can almost feel it. But I just don't know what other options are going to present themselves for Taylor himself. This is from Jeremiah. I don't often disagree with JMV nor agree with Kravitz, but I don't see Taylor playing for the Colts ever again. I don't see the Colts trading him for a 6th-round pick. And then I don't see him not playing and at the same time not getting paid and completely foobarring, wasting a year in his NFL lifetime for what he's trying to chase. And really what he's trying to erase, and that is the thought of how he has played and how disposable what he does is, how easily it is to make up for what he does. I hate to say it, but it's almost like you have to prove yourself again. Whether it's after last year and being injured, proving it to the Colts or proving it to somebody else. I can't see the Colts trading him for next to nothing. And I can't see him sitting out the entirety of the year. Just a thought. Let's start with George here in the 4 o'clock hour, 239-1070. George, welcome to the show.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I could not be better. You're calling George. That means it's a damn good day. What's up?
Man, I've been getting killed on these 6 and 5 leg parlays. I had to call you today. I know.
Why are you getting killed here? What's happening?
Man, the Cincinnati Reds got me last night, brother. I mean, they got me, man. I took the Reds. The Cubs ran like they was playing spades or something on them last night.
Let me tell you this, though, George, man. The Reds are a dangerous proposition most days anyway, because they can go they can go to late innings with a 4 or 5 run lead, and normally that's necessary because at some point they're going to, send Lucas Sims out there, and he's going to walk the first 2 guys that he faces and have to dig out of something. So they're dangerous.
That's what I was thinking was going to be a last, 6th, 7th, 8th inning run. And they're going to come right back. But at that time, the Cubs was up like 13 to 3 or something like that. I'm like, okay, I know the Reds are going to come back on this thing. But something told me to take the over.
Normally, when you score 9 runs, you put yourself in a fairly decent position of winning, don't you?
Yeah.
and wasn't the case last night, yeah.
Yeah. I had a question to ask you about that Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence fight. A buddy of mine was telling me that he said it was Earl Spencer got into a wreck a while back, and that Roy Jones was making a comment about that. The skin, the above his eye and everything from that accident wasn't quite healed up, and it created a soft spot or a vulnerable spot on him where Crawford was able to take advantage of.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I didn't watch it on Saturday. I was playing music for the masses on Saturday. I did not see it.
Oh, okay.
Are you a big fight fan?
Oh, man, I love it, man. I love boxing, man. It's baseball gives me like the Red Fox heart attack thing. And I love boxing because boxing you can sit back and watch and you can get a good feel of who's seasoned and who's not. But I was just wondering if you thought that that fight that Crawford might have been outclassed him, but you said you didn't see it.
No, I was playing music for the masses here on Saturday night, right next door. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think it was actually. I think it may have been on in the studio, but I wasn't paying much attention to it. So yeah, you'll have to ask somebody else that watched it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to get you.
But George, you can call any time and then give me grief regarding the Reds scoring 9 runs and losing a game like last night.
Oh man, yeah, man. I know. I was thinking about you last night. I said, brother, I bet you got heartburn right now.
Nah, man, I kind of just, and nothing's really going to break my stride with this because I've had a lot of fun watching them this year, and it was unexpected fun, and it's been such a long time since this product the Reds put out there has been enjoyable. I mean, nothing really is going to break that down. And I completely understood why they didn't go out and do anything at the trade deadline because I didn't think there was anything out there that is at least markedly going to make this team that much better than it is right now. So you just kind of roll with it and see what may happen when you get a couple of arms back in the later on this month, for example. So, yeah, I'm good with it. It's going to take a lot to break me down from the excitement that has been this season. It's been fun to watch them.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's been real fun because I remember growing up on the Reds when I was a little kid. It was the Reds, Cubs, and the Cardinals here when I was coming up there, back in the 80s. And that's all the baseball we was able to watch. Was it Channel 4 back then? We was getting a lot of Reds.
I love Channel 4 back then, too. Yeah, and normally, too, I think in the 80s, for the most part, there was a lot of losing going on there. I mean, you're hoping Gary Reedus was going to be the next big thing. Back then, remember, we were cheering for Eddie Milner in center field, and Wayne Krenchicki was playing third. Even with Rose starting out as a player-manager, that was really the only thing. That and him tracking down Ty Cobb in 1985, that was really the only thing they had going most of the time in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little something.
Yep.
I have family that played Major League Baseball and was a Cubs fan, so I have to be a Cubs fan.
Well, tell me all about who's the family member.
Bill Matlock is my Aunt Cynthia. May she rest in peace. That was her husband.
Wow, that's awesome. Bill Matlock is one of the most underrated players that we have seen. And not just in his time, 70s and 80s in Major League Baseball, but all time. Yeah. The guy was a machine at the plate and could play some third base, too, when he was down there.
Oh, yeah. And then my baby brother, my baby brother's father is Terry Whitfield. And
really?
My mother met Terry through Aunt Cynthia and Uncle Bill when they was out in California.
Yeah. Bill Madlock was such a badass player. He was fun to watch. There's no doubt about that. Was he around 72 years old in his early 70s right now, I think?
Still be around there like that, somewhere around there, because he lives in Las Vegas now, and I was supposed to be heading out there this in a couple of weeks. But I'm going to have to cancel.
No, you tell him if you talked to him, we said hello. He was one of the more underrated players that I can remember over my time, certainly as a baseball fan. George?
Oh, brother, I sure will, man. I sure will.
Good phone call, man. George, I appreciate that. Thanks for your call. Madlock won with the Pirates in 79 with We Are Family. I know that he had a couple of handful, I think, of batting titles in both the 70s and the 80s. But he is and was a highly underrated player. I thought. Could be wrong about that, but that's how I felt back then. Bill Madlock, good reference right there. Donk's up next at 239-1070. Hello, Donk.
What's up? Hey, first of all, John, I want to thank you for not talking about women's soccer because that can put me to sleep pretty quickly.
I'll be completely honest with you, Donk, because DirecTV has fouled up 59 and Channel 4 with their beef with Nexstar, those that deliver the channels to DirecTV. I don't have 59 nor CBS here, so I don't have Fox or CBS. I can't even watch myself with Hagen on Sunday night
I understand,
because of this.
I'd much rather hear about boxing than I would. Anyway, I digress. Hey, about this Jonathan Taylor situation, I to be honest with you, I'm getting sick of hearing him whine. And here's why. We are all adults. When you left the old station, you had a non-compete, and I believe you had to sit out for a while.
I did. 6 months.
We all signed a letter of agreement of employment. You can't go back if you can't go back and tell your employer, here's what I want, or I'm not doing it. If you do, you're allowed to lose your income. I'm sorry, but he signed that contract. He has a degree from Wisconsin. He's a bright kid, obviously. Man, dude, he signed the contract. I don't feel sorry for him. He needs to just play and move on.
Well, Donk, that's the approach that the Colts and specifically Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard have taken to this all along. I mean, we get kind of caught up in everything else that's going on, Jim being active in social media and this back and forth that has occurred with the agent. But that is what you just said is exactly how the Colts have felt regarding Taylor and this year all along. So,
and he's a millionaire. I'm sorry, man. People have problems, but he has champagne problems at this point. You know, again, dude, I just get sick of it. Just sign the contract, or just play, move on.
Thank you, Dunk. I appreciate that. That's exactly how the Colts have felt. And you can like it or loathe it, but that's how they have felt the entire time. It just would not be as amplified had Jim not gotten loose on Twitter with that first tweet. Think about this for a moment. See if you follow me. Had Jim not sent that out, then you were still going to get the beef that had been brought up with Jonathan Taylor's representation. You were still going to get that, hey, this guy deserves more money than what he's getting right now. You were still going to get that. And in turn, especially the way that it's gone down now, then Jonathan Taylor ultimately, especially if they continued to go and he sat out, and again, this has all been magnified because of the back and forth. It's been turned into a soap opera because of the back and forth. But he was going to be vilified for that, out of many. Now, what has taken place, because Jim did what he did to start it, now instead of it's just the player being vilified, now you get people saying, well, I mean, what about the owner here? And now, I mean, you thrust yourself and create a situation that was needless to create. And what's funny is we have an educated enough Colts audience out there to where they knew all this. But then when you get that back and forth, it's like anything in social media. I mean, everybody jumps on board. Everybody jumps on board with their own opinion. And what do? You make matters worse. That's exactly what has transpired with all of this. Again, this was stuff that was going to happen anyway, and it was stuff that you knew that was going to happen anyway. And now it's been transformed into a soap opera, needlessly. And that's where we are. JMV Taylor's made enough money to sit a season without having to worry about income. His agent isn't going back down. Here's the thing. You're going to skip a year, dude? At a position in which has been devalued that you play, and the fashion in which you play, you're going to sit a year? You're going to take a year off your timetable. So you're going to cross your arms, you're going to fold your arms, and you're going to sit a year without income, being fined, and wasting a year of what is already going to be a short-term career, more than likely, just in NFL terms, but certainly with running backs. You're going to do that? All I've suggested is this, and I don't see any way around it. You come back, you play this year, and if you stay pissed and you play well, you go someplace else that you believe values your effort and your production more than here. And then you stick it up this place's rear end. Right? Is that what you do? Go transfer someplace else and stick it up their rear end. And if you come back this year, at least you get paid in a year in which, who knows, this is hypothetical. You know, maybe it's a down year, maybe you have an injury, but at least you are still playing. And then for you personally, at least you are still getting paid. I have no idea how sitting out would be good for him, Jonathan Taylor, the player, whatsoever. No idea. If all that we know right now is accurate, I have no idea how that's beneficial to him whatsoever. You can be mad. We've all been mad. I mean, hell, I've been mad, too, about certain situations, but I don't know how you get out of this one without playing, as it stands right now. You know, waste a year for a running back, again, a position that's already been so just massively devalued. That surely can't be the advice. Could you say, well, his agent isn't going to back down? I don't know about that advice. I mean, so far, I don't know about the advice that's really done a great deal of justice for your client here. I don't know if I'd be advising that you sit out and you get enough money to get by and then you get fined and you won't get paid. I don't know about that one. Hey, Todd, before the break, talk to me.
Hey, John, about tying your last two calls together, 29 runs in the game last night is the equivalent of 30 World Cup soccer games. And, hey, you've got the best memory in the business. So how many years ago was the Le'Veon Bell Pittsburgh brouhaha?
Oh, I was going to say maybe 5 or 6.
Now,
right?
Correct me. Is he out of the league?
Yes, he is.
So under the category of lessons learned, I don't remember, was Bell, was that an expiring rookie contract? Had he been franchised once? What was the...
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
We remember.
I believe I'm thinking right now. I believe he was franchise tagged in he had an issue. I think he got suspended. This may go back to 16. I think in 17 it was franchise tagged. In 18 he may have been franchise tagged as well. I think he signed a deal with the Jets in 19, and that didn't work out. I think that's how it went. I believe that's how it went. I think it went suspension, a pair of franchise tags, disgruntled player in Pittsburgh, and then finally a deal, I believe, with the Jets that obviously didn't pan out.
He eventually ended up in Kansas City for a year.
Yeah. And then, I think this goes back to this was like 16 through 19 if my memory serves. Yeah, Kansas City. I think he spent time for a minute in Baltimore, maybe a cup of coffee in Tampa too.
So again, under the category of lessons learned, I don't know what he gave up, but it was more than $4 million.
I mean, it's money you're never going to find again. And even if you're just stratospherically, Todd, underpaid, as Taylor thinks he is right now, and it's $4.5 million, and there's no doubt you look at it in the landscape of other guys compared to the production, for example, we saw a couple of years ago out of Taylor. Yeah, I mean, he is deserving of more than that, but the Colts are going to, at least as it stands right now, prove to them that he deserves more money, play out this contract, and then pay him or maybe not pay him or let him go here. And I just don't know how you fight that by sitting out, being fined, and then not getting paid. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Somebody had pointed out that actually this year's contract is essentially the accumulation of what he got paid for his first 3 years.
Yeah.
I know you've got a lot of money in your couch cushion, but it's not for Davenport. My fault.
And it's also a wasted year. I mean, it's you sit out the entire year and you talk about the position, and I've said it's been devalued, which it is right now. Then you waste a year in your prime at that position in the NFL. I couldn't advise that to my client.
Well, I'm with you. I don't see him sitting. That's my opinion. So I appreciate time.
Hey, Todd, anytime. Thank you very much. I could see that. Anybody else? All right, let me take a break and come back. If you guys are loaded up, I see Lowell, Adam, and Jeff lurking there. We can do that. We can get out of the realm of Jonathan Taylor, too. We don't have to sit there and talk about this if you don't want to. If you do want to, we certainly can. Colts back at it coming up tomorrow. And we've got a backyard bourbon broadcast coming at you on Friday. I'm going to name the winner. If you sign up at 1075thefan.com right now, we'll draw a winner coming up tomorrow. Be in your backyard coming up on Friday with Heaven Hill Distillery, Evan Williams, Ford's Garage, and Bell's. Going to have a great time. Again, we draw tomorrow. Also, we've got Yacht Rock Review tickets coming up. Dave Chappelle tickets to give away coming up as well. 93.5, 1075 The Fan. to Derek Schultz in here yesterday, holding things down for me. I went to a place on Lake Monroe, which they call Monroe Lake now. I had no idea. I've been all over that place, had no idea this place existed, and it was great. I mean, the highest point on Lake Monroe, little gravel road to get back there, and a shout-out again to Joe Huff, who invited everybody there, certainly everybody affiliated with the Roncalli cross-country team, for a little getaway, a little camp out. I wasn't about to camp. I'm not a camping out dude. I'm not sleeping in a tent. I got to have some AC on. I need a flushable toilet. Anybody else with me on that? I mean, I need a flushable toilet. So I wasn't about to camp. If I was going to stay there, I was going to go ahead and swim across and go to the Four Winds and stay there. But no, it was outstanding. And thanks to Joe, thanks to Coach Buckley down at Roncalli for having him. But it was a great time. Great time down there. I mean, I took my mom back there, too, because my mom, I said, my mom has been around Lake Monroe a bunch, too. I don't think you've ever been back there. It was great. Absolutely fantastic. I went to Judah. Shout out to Judah. Brad Clapper. That's the home of the clap. Brad Clapper. My mom said, can you take me by the Dollar General store at Judah? Because I believe that they have fresh vegetables. Who knew? I didn't know. I thought he may have a box of T-shirts and some socks in the aisle there with maybe some Tabasco sauce, some marshmallows. I had no idea that they had some fresh produce on hand. And shout out to the Judah Dollar General. Let's get Lowell on the board at 239-1070. Lowell, welcome to the show.
How are we doing today, Jay?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Thing about it is, we went through this same thing last year with Kenny Moore, but he only did it in minicamp, and then he showed up and he played the season. So I don't get what JT's doing. And if there's anything good about this, is it takes, I think, a little bit of the pressure off Richardson, because all the eyes is on JT instead of him.
Yeah, you know what, Lowell? It's funny, too. We've all been in a similar position, and it doesn't matter what level we're talking about. I mean, we've all felt that our services are worth more than what we're getting paid. And, oftentimes you can't do something about that. I just seem like that this is one of those cases where you ultimately can't do something about it. And the great point was made, people, I've called him disposable at that position, and that's how most view that position, is disposable at running back. But when he was injured last year, we blamed everything on the offensive line and everything on the quarterback. But, I mean, you wonder if he were around and healthy, if he could have helped out a situation here or there, even last year. So I just think that ultimately the Colts want him to prove his value, and I think that if he wants to certainly get paid this year, he's going to have to do just that. I just don't see any way out of it.
Well, one other thing, could it be that he doesn't think he's going to come back with that kind of speed? He's wanting to get his money now because he knows he's not going to get it next year.
I don't know what good, though, sitting out would do you for next year. You know what I mean? And you're right. I mean, he could come back and maybe it's a flop, right? Maybe he's a flop. He gets injured, doesn't play well, and that doesn't bode well for anybody wanting him in a new contract next year. But you can say this. You can say the same. You can say the same. Can you not if he doesn't play? I mean, okay, so disgruntled, set out the entire season, wasted a year on your running back NFL clock. I mean, you can say the same thing if you sat out, and then when you sit out, you don't get paid. So,
well, Le'Veon Bell didn't come back very well, did he?
No, he did not. Lowell, you call anytime, man. Good call. Thank you.
Later on, man.
I know you guys are getting tired of it. I get you. I'm tired of it, too. This wears on you. There was a point with Andrew Luck where I thought, man, I never want to talk about this stuff again. And unfortunately, it has just been a laundry list, a scroll, if you will, of nothing but storyline or content, radio show content stuffing, ridiculous, soap opera-esque, circusy storylines with this team over, I mean, even longer term past. I said recent here, but longer term that just wears you out. And this is another one in the long line of them. And again, we're going to get to this point where we're going to debate it. But we're not at this point where a lot of people are going to vilify the owner had he not said anything. What do you do about that, JMV? I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. I mean, it's just like anybody utilizing social media. I don't know if there's anything you're ever going to be able to do about it. And I've said this all along, and I know others are kind of jumping on board with this too. I've said this all along. He wants to be an ownership, NFL ownership major voice here. And a lot of people have begrudgingly jumped on board with my thought on this. I think that every bit is true. But again, what he has done, he's opened up the door for everybody, and I take this away from Bull Durham all the time, for everybody to be in his kitchen. And then for him to take a major amount of criticism as well, when ultimately we were going to be here anyway, and that was completely unnecessary. From Pat Marsh. So, JMV, I think JT's injury is worse than what's being reported. JT knows that and doesn't want to show it in camp before getting guaranteed money. Yeah. Well, then you would have some problems, Pat, because the owner went on with Pat McAfee weeks ago and deemed him healed. So, with that set a standard. And I guess you could say, well, maybe Jim was playing Pat and wanting to put that he is healed out there when he wasn't. And yeah, I don't know if it goes that deep. Thank you, Pat, for that. Jeff's up next at 239-1070. Hello, Jeff.
Hi. Explain, because I don't understand why you're saying that the running back position is devalued.
Yes. This is not my position. That's the position of basically the entirety of the NFL. But I can explain it if you like.
I mean, that's the main thing is people they want to run the ball, right?
Yeah, not as much as they once did. Do you have one of those run the damn ball hats? Because I'm assuming you have to put that up now. Because it's not that way. I will tell you this, though, and Jeff, in full disclosure, there are a couple of running backs that you see in the NFL that still will garner paid handsomely status because of their versatility. When you have a running back that is versatile and has the versatility out of the backfield, and this is not me coming up with these rules. This is just how it is in the NFL right now. Is they look for the higher paid guys are going to be good on third down, can get you down the field, can hybrid you, into a wide receiver running back type of situation and be that type of vertical threat. You see that in Christian McCaffrey. You've seen that at Alvin Kamara. Those are the types of running backs that are going to hold higher value than the so-called bell cow running backs of the past that run on first and second down and may end up being taken out on third down. But I will, Jeff, in your corner on this, tell you that is different with the Colts right now. You just need production is going to be an inexperienced rookie quarterback, production you can count on from wherever you get it. So to me, with the Colts, it doesn't matter. That's why with the Colts, I think both sides need to realize how necessary in the present they are to one another. So with the Colts, to me, it is different than what the rest of the NFL looks at that position right now.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but you're saying your position is it's more of a pass offense.
Yes. Wide receivers are at a collectively speaking, much higher value than running backs are. Whereas back in the 1980s, you flip that over.
Okay, so, Taylor isn't much as far as catching the ball out of the back?
He has not been one of a pass-catching threat of the past. Yes, he is not viewed as a a multifaceted threat. He's more of a bell cow running back. He's not been viewed as like what Christian McCaffrey, for example, does out of the backfield. Thus, he's been devalued at that position for that compared to those guys.
What was the guy that we just got rid of to the Bills, traded to the Bills?
Nyheim Hines.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's not like Nyheim.
Well, I mean, you can make the argument they extended Nyheim Hines as well. And Nyheim Hines, as much as I like Nyheim, I mean, he went to Buffalo and had a couple of special team scores, and that was about it. And then obviously off-season wise, got injured a couple of weeks ago, and that was that for his status this season. But they paid him money in which that didn't work out too. And by and large, it was going to be much cheaper, we're assuming, than what Jonathan Taylor would have wanted. But they certainly saw a versatility in the passing game that they valued more than what a lot of these bell cow running backs and how they're viewed and valued in this present day NFL. And those aren't my rules. Like, I understand the value of Taylor here with this team moving forward, especially this year, whereas the rest of the NFL doesn't view it that way.
Okay, but you're saying Taylor's not very versatile as far as
that is what he is, a first and second. He is a running back, old school type of running back. But Jeff, you brought this up, and here's a good point to make. Make this point to all your friends. So 3 years ago, right? 3 years ago, Chris Ballard moved up in the second round to draft Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
And Jim Irsay signed off on that and said, you know what? If you want to do that, you go do it. That was the design that Chris Ballard had. And then all of a sudden, in year number 2, you get the run the damn ball hats out there. And everybody remember, complained to Frank Wright doesn't know what he's doing because he's not running the ball enough. So now you get into this year, certainly a transition year, the final year of his deal. And now you're cool with just going ahead and punting him here. That is a flawed build from the beginning right there. That, to me, is epically on the general manager. And the general manager and, at the time, the owner not being on the same page, whereas now, you've devalued the position here, at least from what we've heard from them, as much to go ahead and be cool if this guy walks next year and you're not paying him, you're not extended him. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, that to me is incredibly flawed philosophy. That was just 3 years ago.
Okay, let me ask you another quick question. So are you saying that Taylor, his style of being a running back is more like a Gale Sayers, just running the ball?
Oh, no. Like, take it from this standpoint, Jeff. It'd be like if you would try to bring back guys like, John, and this is much different running backs, but guys like John Riggins, for example. That just handed the ball and, 3 yards and a cloud of dust type of stuff. And I know that Jonathan Taylor is much better than that. That's why I advocate the importance that he needs to be here this year. But that position-wise, that is something that is, Jeff, thank you very much, that has gone away. And you may find an exception to the rule. I don't know if you would call Frank Gore, for example, the exception to the rule. But there are some exceptions out there. And, in fact, there should be right here. I mean, knowing what you have right here. Knowing what you have, and then people saying, well, you can bring anybody. It's Deion Jackson or Evan Hull, and everything's going to be okay. I just simply don't believe that this year. And I think to expedite the process of a rookie quarterback, you need somebody that has been productive, and you would expect behind him to be able to be productive. And not just to help out the entire process, but to make your offense better. To give you more of a competitive advantage type of situation moving forward. I've said this all along. This position, this situation here is different than others. For this year. It kind of makes you wonder, too, if there's a change in philosophy. And that philosophy of this build has been flawed from the outset. But how they view Jonathan Taylor is just their change in philosophy, whereas, obviously Nyheim Hines is gone, and, maybe when you look back on it, there's nothing you can do with Quentin Nelson. I'm assuming that they still value Quentin Nelson as much as they ever did, but this is just hypothetical. Maybe you view, your left guard, your linebacker, in positions that aren't necessarily certainly of high need in the NFL. Maybe you're starting to view that build and your early philosophy of how you were trying to rebuild this team as flawed, and you're trying to move in a different direction. Questions we'll ask Kevin Bowen coming up at the top of the hour. Adam Derrick on the other side. Listen to win. We got tickets to go see Dave Chappelle at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. That's coming up in a couple of minutes. I don't want you to go anywhere. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Get ready.
Kids for you, September the 13th, Gamebridge Fieldhouse, number 9 at 239-1070. By the way, Keith Sweat, turn this up really quick, would you, James? If you see Keith Sweat tonight, go check him out on the free stage out at the Indiana State Fair. And tell him JMV said that he got a lot of he and she work done thanks to this song. Turn it up. A lot of he and she done to this song. Thank you very much, Keith Sweat. Shout out to you. Free stage, Indiana State Fair later on tonight. Make sure that Keith understands that. All right, Gamebridge Fieldhouse, September the 13th. Anybody out there want to go see Dave Chappelle? September 13th, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Tickets available right now. I've got a pair for you. Number 9 at 239-1070. It's going to be a blast right there. Again, September the 13th, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Dave Chappelle and his show should be absolutely outstanding. It's from Jason. Hey, JMV, what's the chance that Steichen likes the thought of 3 cheap running backs by committee? And though JT would be great as a part of it, he just took Philly to the Super Bowl and doesn't like the idea of paying a running back the big bucks. He may not like paying a running back big bucks, but we also should remind him that the running back he had a year ago ran for 1,200 yards plus. And you don't know, with the loss of Miles Sanders, how the effect may be on that offense this year. So they're trying to slide in a guy like DeAndre Swift coming over from Detroit now. You don't know how that's going to work out. All I'm going on here is how it did work out, making sure that you had a consistent runner back there. And I know that it was by committee, but at least one person on that committee gave you 1,200 rushing yards, which was necessary also, right, to open up a lot more for Jalen Hurts, to open up a lot more for a passing game. And also factor this in. Compare offensively what was at the disposal for Steichen a year ago as the offensive coordinator compared to what he has as the OC and the head coach with the Colts this year. And then try to explain to me how you can just get by with random dude. See, to me, that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because you have one more year, contractually one more year with Taylor. Why would you not want to try to utilize that? And I know we kind of look at it more as Taylor not wanting to play here, wanting to go someplace else because of the formal trade that he has asked for. I think a lot in comparison to Philly a year ago to what you hope grows here. They had 1,200 rushing yards from one dude. You'd love to have that here, but are you going to get that from Deion Jackson? You're going to get that from Evan Hull? Those are the questions that I would ask, Jason, if that were to be the head coach's philosophy. May very well be, too. Those are the questions that I would ask. Adam's up next at 239-1070. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, JMV?
Fantastic, Adam. Thanks for the call.
I got a couple things. One, shout out to Derek. Here's the thing. We can switch gears from Taylor. Let's talk about how good it is to Doc Pryor. He was a turnstile last season, and it's good to see Shaq Leonard's coming back. I'm going to use your word, and that would be sports arousal. I am ready for this year, and I'm hoping we just bring the heat.
Do you have a semi-sports arousal working right now for this team? Do you?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I'm pumped up because I was sitting there watching the draft, and I was like, you know what, we got to get somebody good. I was either between AR-15 or it was with Stroud.
Yeah. Listen, they need to prove to you that they're able to do that. And I've said this too. They need reasons to get you juiced up. And you certainly don't want to let somebody down like you that's already juiced up. So
exactly.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Adam, man, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. You got anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you also going to have a booth set up for that Colts 5K August 19th for people to run by and shout out to you?
Yes. You want to come out there and yell at me?
Oh, I'm going to be out there.
Sweet. Well, come by. Come by and hang out. I don't know what I'll be doing. Like 2 hours of it's going to be during practice. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to be doing. I'll be out there, though. I'll see you out there, Adam. Thank you for the call. Adam's got a semi regarding this season. Can I say that? It's weird. I can say, like, hey, Adam has a semi-sports arousal, and everybody goes, oh, that's okay. And when I say, well, Adam has a semi, that's different. You're just different. Still makes me laugh, though. JMV, I treat contract holdouts the same way I treat college recruiting. Do what's best for you, and if you get here at some point, I'll cheer for you. That may be the best philosophy that you can take right now, because I don't know if it's going to happen any other way. The Colts signed free agent wide receiver Amari Rodgers today. They waived wide receiver Johnny King. Hey, JMV, what were you talking about Cubs fans being like douchey Cardinal fans earlier? Nah, here's the way that it was. I didn't hear anything from Cubs fans on Monday night because their team lost. And then the douchiness came when I had to hear it last night. That's what Cardinal fans do. Only around to be douchey. And that's what a lot of Cubs fans did. Not Corey Kinney. Corey Kinney didn't. But some of you Cubs fans did. I didn't hear anything on Monday night. I didn't see any. I know that he's part of your brethren over there as a producer. I didn't see any nerdy tweets from Mark Dykton on Monday night. Where's his nerdy tweets? Nothing. So all I'm saying, and this is sound advice from somebody that knows, don't be like Cardinal fans who, if things aren't going right, man, they're going to go stay away. But if things are, they're going to tell you all about it. That's what I was talking about regarding Cubs fans last night. And again, you're not going to hurt me because, listen, regardless of what happens, I've had a lot of fun. It's the most fun season I've had, seriously. The most fun season I've had watching the Reds going all the way back to wire. And I know that in 95 with Davey Johnson, they had a good year. And I know that they had good years and Jay Bruce and that group. But that was more expected than this. You make it more exciting when it's completely out of nowhere unexpected. That makes it much more fun. This has been the most fun I've had watching the Reds in a summer since Wire to Wire of 1990. And they may win jack squat. But to me, that's all right. Quick break. If you're on hold, I'll get back to you. Bowen's going to join us on the other side. I also have Yacht Rock review tickets to give away. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. speaking to our next guest and his wife, Maddie. Nobody. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Weekday morning, 7 until 10 a.m. With Jake Query, it's Kevin Bowen with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Kev, welcome to the show.
Boy, this might be the most horrifying intro that I've ever experienced.
Well, let me make it worse then. Hey, Kev, if you were Hean and Sheehan back in the day, for example, would you listen to Keith Sweat, or was there another artist of your choice that you would cue up?
You know, for a moment there, I was waiting for the Mike Wells voice crack to happen about mid effort there by you, like it was a Friday afternoon there. And then the other thing I thought was, wait, is Paul Anka going to fall in here? Is this JMV when Maddie was pregnant with Rosie?
No. I kind of want the information that obviously something took place prior to that time. The Hean and Sheehan for Kevin Bowen. What was the go-to? What will you cue up when you knew that you were about ready to close the deal and all that you needed was a little background sound for the moment? What was it?
Yeah, maybe it's my generation. I don't know if that was like an absolute like necessity.
What the hell were you nerds doing then? What?
I think you just, if you're in the mood, you just kind of do. I mean, you just go for it.
You didn't have to set the mood. Are you serious? You never had to set the mood.
I guess I didn't really attempt to set the mood. Maybe that if I would have done that, maybe I could have had a little bit more success.
Part of growing up, part of growing into a man was setting the mood. Don't tell me you missed that.
Part of growing into a man was setting the mood. I can't say that the lights were dim.
Nothing.
The candles were on, and I'm scrambling through. All right,
no Jodeci, no Shy. No, maybe 112. I mean, nothing like that. Seriously.
Honestly, I feel like the Boys to Men, like Pretty Ricky action, they all just had like issues with them. Out of the recording studio. That now I feel like all their music's like. Are we allowed to listen to that, or is that like?
Hey, Brian Foreman. Brian Foreman just checked in via Twitter and says that Kevin's right. No one sets the mood anymore. That makes me sad. That's a rite of passage right there. You had to be able to set them. That's part of closing. That's setting the mood. Nobody set. You just guys. What do you guys just walk through the door and go at it? That's what happened.
Yeah, maybe it's the Reds bullpen and there are issues with me and the old closing department. But, yeah, I mean, you're watching a movie, whatever, but I don't think there was a... let me make sure that's the...
was it Basic Instinct? Was it Basic Instinct that set it up? I mean, that's what I find in Basic Instinct. I mean, Michael Douglas walks in with his V-neck sweater on and no undershirt and just rolls in the room and just like they start going at it. Is that kind of how you guys... That's what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that easy. No, probably not. That probably doesn't paint the exact picture. But as far as like actually saying, all right, boom, I'm gonna play this out and cue up this song and then that song, I can't say that was ever in the game plan.
Man, I'm shocked. I had no idea that your generation didn't have to set the mood. That makes me sad.
I don't know. Maybe Blake will be different.
Well, I think he knows by hanging with me all my life what would be the go-tos. All you had to do is go in and hang out during the JMV takeover. If I rolled some Silk or H-Town or Teddy Pendergrass, that's how I would set the mood. Luther Vandross. Like, I'll give you a great example. The Loverman Jerry Wade has a night show on one of our, as a part of our stations here at Radio 1 and Urban 1, WTLC. He sets the mood every single weeknight. I should say Monday through Thursday, I believe, on weeknights. Like, that's setting the mood to me right there. I didn't know that your generation didn't set the mood, and generation, whatever this is now, no longer sets the mood. I'm upset about that.
Blake will be turning back the clock. Roncalli after prom coming up this spring. He'll be dialing up. What do you say the guy's name is?
Let me lick you up and down. He'll be some Silk queued up there and ready to go. Until you say stop. That was just a little Al B. Sure. Man, nothing, Kev. Wow. Wow.
Again, I don't want to speak for the entire generation, but I guess Brian has backed me a little bit on this.
He does.
I don't think that is something that has been in the repertoire.
I'm shocked. Absolutely shocked right there.
Yeah, this is probably the maddest that you've been.
It is. No, it's not even mad. It's kind of disappointed.
God, I feel like I'm your son now.
Well, and I can transition here into a more disappointment because I've told you this before. I am so sick and tired of drama and soap operas and circuses and just completely unnecessary ridiculousness that has followed, this organization around, certainly for the past 6 years, as we well know. Seems like every single year there's always something, and it just absolutely wears you out. And yet again, we find ourselves, and completely unnecessary, by the way, because what transpired with the Jonathan Taylor side was going to happen, Kev, right? It was going to happen regardless, and then Jim kind of sets the mood for that, and then here we are.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. It feels like I get the first week of training camp annually, and I'm like, God, that was wild, or that was crazy. And I feel like I said that for the last half dozen years, and certainly this one in a much different light than what we're used to, especially the type of player that is going through this, and a guy that, I think organizationally was, I don't know if we're using past tense yet, was very beloved, and obviously you spent a really high draft pick on him, hoping that he would be a big part of your future, of this rebuild, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's kind of wild to think, John, that, since, I guess, Nyheim Hines last fall, you've had three guys that this organization really, really likes and liked, all asked to be traded in Hines and Gilmore and Jonathan Taylor. I mean, that doesn't – I can't recall from, 2010 when I started covering the team to, 2021, I can't recall three guys even asking to be traded, and then, we'll see if Taylor it's followed through on. But, three guys that the organization really, really likes. I mean, this is not like, whatever. Okay, hey, Jerry Hughes, it hasn't, worked out here.
Well, I get the Gilmore stuff, though, Kev. I get the Gilmore thing more. You know what I mean? I get the Gilmore part of it. I mean, at his age, his position, I can see it. Hines, you're right about that. I think Hines, certainly in this Taylor case, is probably stuff that you can go on with that. But Gilmore, I mean, you can kind of see it. It was sketchy. He wanted to go someplace where he can win, and then, how much are you going to win this year? I can kind of see that part of it.
Well, that right there, I think, sums up the franchise. He wanted to go to a place where he could win, and that's the issue. I mean, the state of the franchise over the last 10 months has been certainly not a winning franchise. And, for Hines and Taylor, obviously those guys for different reasons. Didn't want to be here for Nyheim, and Johnson appears to be in a similar boat. So I think it's just it's got to be a harsh reality for Jim Irsay to kind of look at his franchise in that light, because in his ownership, I don't think we've seen that. And it's the reality of the situation that you're at, and that's on top of the obvious numbers that we've talked about, of course, for years now, of not winning a division title since 2014, and only one playoff win in that time frame as well. You add all of that up, and it just kind of follows the line of last season, which, in my opinion, was the most disappointing and embarrassing season we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, it's funny, too, and if you want to follow the blueprint of how you screw up the most exciting, most highly anticipating training camp since 1984, this is exactly how you do it. They're following that blueprint, aren't they?
Boy, that's a great point. I mean, the lines for day one of training camp, I haven't seen anything like it. And overall, I would say just the crowds I've seen out there at Grand Park, it's unlike anything I've seen, and it's quite the first impression on Anthony Richardson as well. I mean, I go back to the times that Richardson's been asked about Jonathan Taylor throughout the offseason, and that combination and that, duo in the backfield, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, eyes would light up, and so eager and excited, and probably relieved to kind of have that next to him for however long he's going to play in this rookie season. And now that's obviously serious in question, serious in doubt. So, the hard knocks feel to it all. Typically when those storylines dominate your team, that means the product on the field is pretty bad. And obviously it was pretty bad last season, really, really bad last season. And right now, I don't think anyone's very confident in this team winning more than 6 or 7 games.
So Kevin Bowen, Morning Show, Kevin and Query out at Colts Camp in Westfield at Grant Park, coming up again tomorrow from 7 until 10 a.m. with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Can you imagine what we thought? The spot where you were in thinking about this football team, you and obviously the fans out there, me, whomever, when our heads were hitting the pillow on Christmas night the year before last, after that Arizona game, what we thought about this team and their future compared to from that point until now, what we have seen is absolutely mind-numbingly amazing in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, that is crazy. I haven't thought about it in that light, but yeah, I mean, when you mention that, it's whatever, 98% chance of making the playoffs and trending in the direction where you kind of find ways to win games in different ways late in that season, and then for the Raiders game to happen, and then obviously the debacle there in the season finale from a Jacksonville point, and then for the rest of the season to play out like it did in 2022. Yeah, it's quite the downfall and the demise, and again, so foreign to this fan base. And if you're someone that's really 35 years or younger, you aren't used to this at all. I mean, that's not something that we're used to with this franchise, and that kind of goes back to when Jim Irsay took over as owner there in the mid to late 90s, and it's foreign for him as well. And now you have obviously an attempt at hope and trying to change things up, and what the support looks like for Anthony Richardson now moving forward, I think has always been a major topic, and this Taylor news and how it plays out will certainly have serious impact on that.
So Kevin Bowen is with us. I get back to it. This is something I think Zach Kiefer had, right, in an article, a column, if you will, article with the Athletic, about Gilmore and Hines and now Jonathan Taylor. Now, would you factor in this as being a toxic work environment? Or were these just situations like Jonathan Taylor's just wanted to get paid more? I don't know if I'd view that as it is now, but I wouldn't view that as a toxic maneuver and measure to get the hell out of here. Gilmore obviously needs to expedite this winning thing because of his advanced age and the position in which he played. And then I guess you could view Hines that way, but would you view the environment over there as toxic, given what has been presented with guys that have wanted to bail from this organization recently?
Yeah, I mean, toxic's a pretty big word. I mean, I think it's a pretty juicy word. I think, when I hear that, I think of like a college program and whatever, 7 or 8 guys wanting to transfer out of the program. I guess in a way, trade requests are a bit like that if you want to look at it in that light. I guess I would summarize it as the whole culture that's been drummed up is certainly, there's a lot of fluff with that, and it's certainly not built on Indiana limestone if you want to go down that path, and it's often something that Ballard has mentioned. I mean, Ballard has mentioned so many times, taking care of players, making sure the players are happy. Players. They come first, all of that. And clearly, you've had some very important players, whether it's your own on-field product contributing to not wanting to be here in Gilmore's case, or it's usage, or it's finances. Taylor's probably the one that has the most he's the one that probably brings up culture, philosophy, than anybody else. You think back to Taylor's comments in June, and I think it's important to go back to June because, since then, maybe there's been a little bit more of a health element thrown into this, if you want to believe the back injury situation or not. But back in June, the biggest talking point Taylor brought up on several occasions was, I know how this organization has operated. They reward their own. I mean, honestly, I guess it falls in line with a lot of Jim Irsay's comments from Saturday night. Irsay was super defensive in the treatment of Colts players and this and that, et cetera, et cetera. And that was what Taylor was saying back in June. And now the fact that the Colts are kind of going back on that, and that the blueprint that they have built under Chris Ballard, I think, is being challenged. I would assume Shane Steichen is part of that challenging. I think that is where the confusion comes into play, and that's why Taylor is so frustrated by this, because they paid a running back in Nyheim Hines. They paid guys coming off injuries and Quentin Nelson and Shaquille Leonard since. And the fact that, unless I'm missing something, but I believe Irsay said this, I want to say this is Stephen Holder, like they haven't even offered a contract to Taylor. I think it's fair to say that, from a negotiation.
No, they want him to prove it. That's what they want. They want him to prove it this year. And I guess, we have to ask you and everybody else, is that fair in this case to Jonathan Taylor, making him prove it in the final year of his deal?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I think you could go on both sides of it. Health is the biggest unknown in all of this. Like, I don't know his health status. There's wild reports on what the ankle issue has and the amount of work that still needs to be done and the back injury and he said, she said, and all of that. So I guess if you put the health element to the side, I do think Taylor deserves at least a contract offer. And again, by all accounts, it doesn't even seem like there is an offer for that because, if you're able to front load, again, put his health to the side. If you're able to front load a 3-year contract for Taylor, you keep him around during Anthony Richardson's most critical years of development. He's on the timeline that Richardson is currently on in the sense of you make your first big decision with Richardson after year 3. That's when you would pick up that 5th-year team option. And again, the final part of this, I guess, for me is, and this is what's so different from Marshall Faulk and Edgerrin James, two guys that obviously Irsay brings up a lot when talking about running backs. I said this earlier today to Jake. I don't get the Faulk and Edge comparisons with Taylor in this instance. When you moved on from Faulk, you had Marvin Harrison, you had Tarek Glenn, and then you drafted Edge. So it's not like you just totally abandoned the support for Peyton Manning after year 1. You still had a whole lot of support for him. And then obviously you fast forward to Edge when he moved on. Certainly Edge was much deeper into his career. He came off a torn ACL from several years earlier. Taylor doesn't have that. He's much younger. And when you said bye to Edge, you still drafted Joseph Adai in round 1 the very next year. And look at all the Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor type guys on your offense, from Marvin and Reggie and Dallas and Farglen and Jeff Saturday, et cetera, et cetera. That is light years ahead of where you are at right now with Richardson. Name the skill players that Anthony Richardson's currently working with.
Hey, Kev, I think all you have to say is Peyton Manning. That's it. And even in his younger years, obviously first getting started, all you have to say is Manning, because I think everybody, knew and felt they knew what they were getting. And in this case, you look at Anthony Richardson, it's a huge mystery. You don't know what you're going to get. So you want to surround him. Yeah, you would like to surround him with the best support possible for growth. And leaving Jonathan Taylor out of this, especially in a year in which he should be playing, he's still under contract, and hoping that Deion Jackson and Hall and anybody else, even Zach Moss for that matter, is going to be able to help him out in that category offensively is foolish to me.
Yeah, we had Reggie Wayne on our show earlier today, and I asked Reggie, take it back to 2012 and what you were trying to provide Andrew Luck in year 1, because Reggie could have walked after that 2011 season. He came back here, and obviously Luck, again, like Manning, different stratosphere than Richardson exiting college from experience and NFL projection and all of that. And I asked Reggie kind of, okay, what are you trying to tell your own room now with Richardson? And Reggie made it very clear just how vitally he feels like important it was for Andrew to have him early on, in the sense of Reggie said to him, hey, I'll handle the offense. Whenever you feel comfortable, come to me in that rookie season and you take the reins over. And Reggie said it took him till I think it was about November, he said, to where Luck said, okay, I feel good. I feel like I got my feet underneath me. I'd like to be the front leader guy of this offense. And again, that presence is nowhere to be found from the skill positions with Richardson at all. And so it's so much that you're putting on his plate along with leaving that cupboard barren. And again, I just don't even think the Faulk and Edge comparisons are anywhere near ones that you can even make towards Richardson.
No, you're right. Yeah.
The skill groups are totally different. And yeah, he was just taking 3 spots behind Peyton and Luck, but 13 starts for a 6-6 Florida team is a lot different than Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning had in their respective colleges.
Yeah, there's zero comparison, certainly with Manning, and none to be made with Luck, because everybody was sure. That's why we look at this camp being the most highly anticipated, because you knew with Luck what you were going to get. That's at least how you felt. And the same with Manning. And I know things back in the Manning era were different, but there is such a mystery with Anthony Richardson. I mean, it is such a boom or bust type of view that you have, on this particular quarterback. That has everybody of interest. And again, I think you have to support him as best as possible. I mean, look at Shane Steichen last year as the OC in Philadelphia. I mean, look what they were surrounded with to help expedite and create a season, as we saw from Jalen Hurts. So I'm not talking about Super Bowls or NFC titles. I'm just talking about, watching a guy grow and be competitive and give people hope around here. Wouldn't you assume that you would have to be at least somewhere in the vicinity of trying to track down as many proven players as possible? Wouldn't you want to surround it? I mean, you can't just bring your garden variety guys in here at running back to help. Wouldn't you want somebody that's been there and done that? I would suggest yes, because even a year ago in Philly, they were surrounded by guys, and that is a much different situation than here, even with the guidance of Steichen. So, yeah, these are all things that I fail to truly understand regarding how they value right now Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've mentioned this to you before, but considering the topic, it's probably worth bringing up again. I mean, when you talk about quarterbacks that are most often compared to Richardson, NFL-wise, it seems to be Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, and the Steichen element probably plays into that. Yeah. Josh Allen more of how his college career went at Wyoming. Well, if you look at the trajectory of Allen's career, I mean, it skyrocketed once they made that move for Stephon Diggs. And if you look at what Philly did last year, yeah, I mean, they had Devontae Smith. I mean, Devontae Smith is, unbelievable college wideout and top 15 pick, et cetera, et cetera.
He'd be number one here right now.
Sure. They go out and obviously feel the need to get A.J. Brown. Again, kind of go above and beyond that. And that's where you look at the support and the development. I think so many times all we do is just talk about the drafting of a quarterback, and what we fail to focus on is, again, internal development and the support. And you've got to make sure that personnel-wise you give yourself a chance. It's why Jacksonville did stuff that everybody probably thought was ridiculous last year, in paying for Christian Kirk like they did, and paying for Zay Jones, and paying for Evan Ingram. In a vacuum, people rip those deals. They're like, what? This makes no sense. That is way too much money. Those are overpaid. That's the epitome of paying A money to C and B players in free agency. But Doug Peterson and company knew that they had a massive year on their hands to try and get Trevor Lawrence right. Because if you don't get these guys right in year 1, year 2, year 3, maybe year 4, then you're done. And you got to reset at the franchise. And Jacksonville, did something probably a little bit out of the ordinary. And again, something that a lot of people criticized. And they look like they're going to get the last laugh with that right now. You're Anthony Richardson, and all of a sudden Taylor, is gone, and Pittman potentially tests the open market next spring. I mean, you would walk to Jacksonville to have that skill group in Indianapolis.
What's interesting to me is you saw the evolution of Jalen Hurts a year ago, and we make these comparisons because Shane Steichen was at the helm as OC of the Eagles last year with this offense, and a lot has been made about the whole running back by committee thing. And I always argue this: Miles Sanders had over 1,200 yards for them. And this running back by committee, there's no doubt that Hurts had 700, but I don't think anybody expects to see that from Anthony Richardson this year. And then you talk about the other two guys. I believe it was Gainwell and Boston Scott had much less than half of the type of yardage that Miles Sanders gave them. So to me, it's going to be clear, especially given the circumstances at a much lower level here, that you have somebody to count on. They needed Sanders. We'll see if they need him this year, because now you're going to try DeAndre Swift and some others, and we'll see if that works out. But last year, for them to get to where it was necessary, to get to a Super Bowl, to have that type of year, they needed that clear-cut rushing ability by a running back that they got from Sanders.
Yeah, and that the whole Steichen aspect to it all is just kind of a mystery to me,
and the playbook's going to be thin as hell too, right, Kev? The playbook's going to be a hell of a lot thinner than it was there. I get that part too.
Yeah, Yeah, certainly. When you go off of the timeline of comments, I mean, you go back to Ballard's comments in January, and he repeated the phrase that he now has repeated quite often. And, no matter what position these guys play, I pay good players. And I think he repeated that, if I'm not mistaken, at the season-ending press conference when asked about Taylor. And you go off of Irsay's comments in March at the owners' meeting. Even, and I probably have to go back and look, but I'm sure during the draft there was some mention of the Taylor-Richardson combo from Jim and from Chris. And those two obviously were two very key decision makers in the drafting of Taylor in 2020. And that was the COVID draft. Irsay's on Zoom encouraging Chris to trade up in the second round after taking Pittman to then take Taylor after that as well. So what has changed since then, and what has changed since those comments even earlier in this calendar year? Well, the most obvious answer to that is Shane Steichen.
Agree.
And that's where I'm just thinking to myself, how much of this is head coach influence here at play?
Unless Ballard's changed his philosophy here and is starting to change that. You can't do anything about left guard, can't do anything about linebacker, right now. And Hines is gone. Maybe Chris Ballard's changing his philosophy.
Right, which would be a little bit of a different tune than obviously he had back when the season ended.
Exactly.
And was that coming to Jesus moment, if you will, with the Jim Irsay conversation, or is that, looking Shane Steichen in the eye and be like, all right, this dude knows a whole lot about the offensive side of the football in the modern day NFL game. I've got to listen to him and make sure that, we adhere to what he wants to do moving forward, because it's his offense and he's the guy calling the play.
Kevin Bowen's with us 7 until 10 a.m. He and Jake have you from Colts camp up at the Grand Park in Westfield coming up tomorrow. So, Reds and Cubs tonight, does it mean automatic L if Stuart Fairchild's in the lineup? I don't know. Can somebody look up the numbers when Stuart Fairchild is in the lineup for the Reds? How well do they do?
Yeah, I think I'd rather have Stuart Little in the lineup.
We got a Newman, a Senzel, and a Fairchild lineup tonight. That doesn't give me much of a sports arousal. Right? What's that?
Did I see no De La Cruz in the lineup?
No.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's been a windmill here lately. I think they're going to give him a breather tonight, right?
I thought last night I think there should be a Major League Baseball rule. If you give up more than 6 runs in the first 3 innings, you have to stay in for the rest of the game. Like as punishment. I'm like, why do you
13 earned runs for Ben Lively last night.
Yeah, just keep Lively in there. Why do you have to waste the bullpen during that,
I text Tucker this morning. I said, hey, man, you have much better stuff than Maley does.
That is great. That is great. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, too, man, Dykton in his "Is there a slaughter or a mercy rule" stuff? Tell that nerd to be quiet. That's such a Cardinal fan. Didn't hear anything from him on Monday night, did we? Anything from him Monday night? Oh, and then yakking it up last night. Tell him to shut the nerd stuff down. All right, you sound like a Cardinal fan.
I mean, you would have thought from Cubs Nation last night that win counted as 4.
Yeah. They're still 4 games back.
On that.
Still 4 games back. They can smooch our rear ends. Still 4 games back.
Yeah. In the rearview mirror, but boy, yesterday, when you don't make a move at the deadline, and obviously I understand reasons why, but of substance, and then you give up the old 20 in a game, boy, you add that up, and that's a pretty ugly feeling. So,
here's a better stat for you. How often does a team score 9 and lose?
I know. Yeah, that is so true. I know. I went to bed before the 9th, and I wake up. It's like, oh, they got 4 in the top of the 9. Good, let's just make that look a little bit less ugly in the old box score, although 20-9 pretty much speaks for itself.
It's Kevin Bowen with us. Kevin Bowen, evidently from a generation that did not need to set the mood. So I want you to be anti that generation, Kev, okay? I want you to walk. I want you to, if you may already be in the house, I'm not sure. But
I should teach Max differently, is what you're saying, or I should. I
want you to walk in. Once the kids. God, I shouldn't do this. But I'm gonna.
I think my father-in-law is listening right now, by the way.
Once the kids, because I know, you're getting ready, the kids are off to pre-K. One of the kids, I think Max is off to pre-K right now. So once everything's asleep and ready to go, I want you for the first time and for the first time ever to set the mood, cue it up, and play this.
Cell, 2G, 2,000 watts. Yeah.
That's how you do it. The lover man, Jerry Wade.
Can we get Mike Wells to call in right now? I'm just picturing Wells on a Friday afternoon.
Kev, let me tell you this. Back in 1994, I may damn straight be out kicking my coverage here. And I had to give the nod to the fellas from Silk. Because there's a meeting in my bedroom. Set the mood, brother. Set the mood one of these days. See how it goes, right? See how it goes.
I will report back.
All right, well, we'll see you later on tonight. I don't like it because Stuart Fairchild's in the lineup. I'm a little worried about this.
I know. Gonna need at least double-digit runs, and I don't see that coming from.
Tell Dykton to settle down. Tell Dykton to settle down and stop acting like a Cardinals douchey fan too. Okay.
I will.
See you, buddy. Appreciate you.
See you, John.
It's Kevin Bowen. I never can tell after these conversations like this if Kev's thrilled or horrified. Is he horror-thrilled? He's horror-thrilled. A quick break. We'll come back. Yacht Rock Review coming up before the end of the show, too. We'll set you up for tomorrow next. the Indiana State Fair. It is the legendary Keith Sweat. Check that out. Just tell Keith thank you from me. Awesome in concert. Actually saw him back in March. He was with Belle Biv DeVoe. Actually, New Edition. It was everybody from New Edition, and you saw everything. You saw New Edition, Belle Biv DeVoe, Bobby Brown, Johnny Gill, Ralph Tresvant, Guy opened up for him. It was a good time. Some guy with no shirt was the opener of the opener. I would take that, though. In that show, I would be the opener of the opener. I think a lot of times maybe you don't want to be the opener for the opener, and you really don't want to be the opener for the opener for the opener. But I think I would have taken that, especially if they told me I could go shirtless. This from Carl. Nope, check that. I'm not going to hit that. Sorry, this is it. Mr. Sir. Kevin Bowen puts on the Notre Dame fight song or Rudy to set the mood. Jason said, come on, we're not all bad. Our bark isn't vicious, mostly playful. Unfortunately, it's muted coming from the cellar. Cards fans. Thank you. Gregory says, setting the mood nowadays could be viewed as inappropriate. Is it? Joe says, Gen X, they set the mood with Enigma. I think I did that once upon a time, too. Especially the Return to Innocence chant. That always set the mood. Return to Innocence. That chant going on in the background, that got everybody fired up. Jim McCann says, did you catch that Kevin broke into a quick Mike Wells slow jam impersonation? That was pretty awesome. Yeah, that's unfortunate right there. Yeah, Brian says, no one sets the mood anymore. And Kev says it was completely unnecessary. That makes me sad. It really does. Inside the Lounge via YouTube Live, JMV at 1075, thefan.com is the email address if you guys want to get in there. Got a lot in there to get to, including this from Brandon. Forgive me if you've addressed this, but how much of a negative impact do you think the Jonathan Taylor situation will have on the season? Love the show. That's from Brandon. They're not going to tell you that it does. And, they're just going to go and try to be as professional as possible. But you cannot tell me that every single time, every single moment when there is a Q&A session with the local and or national media that this is brought up, that they don't go, oh, here we go again. I got to talk about this crap. Because I know if I don't want to talk about it, there's no way in hell that they want to talk about it. And I'm sick of it, too. I'm sick of this. I was sick of that. I was sick of last year. I was sick of the luck stuff. I'm sick of it all. I would much rather be sitting here talking about, the opportunity to see this team win and move forward, and it's stuck in the rut of perpetual soap opera-ness. Got to get out of it. I'm sick of it. But you can't tell me that it doesn't. I'm not suggesting it has some profound effect on them during the game. But you see the media approaching, and, all right, there may be questions about the game, about your practice, but then you're going to end up getting hit with a, well, what do you think about Jonathan Taylor? Is that affecting this? And you're going to get a big, here we go. And they're basically going to tell you the same thing over and over. It'll be a unified voice, much like it was, if you remember, with Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, they were outspoken. They answered questions right away regarding the suspension in the situation with Isaiah Rodgers, but it was a unified message. You can tell that they had been prompted. Well, this team, this organization teaches you, they really educate you on this situation. They came right out and they said it. I mean, hell, they said it before anybody else said it in the organization. I think AJ Speed may have been on here and said it. But you could tell that it was a prompted, unified message that they had. And I'm assuming if this draws even further, for example, Brandon, into the season, you'll get a lot of that. But much like the subject matter at hand, it'll wear you out. JJ's up next at 239-1070. JJ, hello.
Hey, what's going on, boss? You doing all right?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for the call.
Daymar, I found one.
What's that?
Daymar, the word.
Yeah.
The word sounds with Daymar, the donation to Daymar. Real quick.
Daymar Services, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, I love them.
I catch the word. 2 words.
Yeah.
Sports arousal and douchebag. You have 1 week. You cannot say sports arousal, and you cannot say douchebag for 1 week.
Okay.
And I got 50 on Daymar. If not, of course, that is.
Well, listen, I can slide in semi, so I'll be safe, and okay. I can say douchey and not douchebag and be okay too.
Oh, we're bending the rules, but
I'm not bending the rules. I'm going by what you're setting up here. You're the one that's setting the rules. I'm just playing along.
Okay, I'll give you that, but okay. I can't say anything to that. I didn't specify, so we'll give you that. And secondly, I know you have other people calling, but I appreciate you, man. What would you think in this situation with Jonathan Taylor? Rest in peace to a great NFL analyst that Professor John Clayton would say to this right now.
And thank you, JJ, for the call. Man, I miss John Clayton so much. He was so good to this show, to you Colts fans. I mean, every time we called, he came on. Just so incredibly knowledgeable. Miss him so much. I would have to think that he would be along the same lines as what we're talking about right now. And understanding the necessity, and especially in the final year of a contract, when you are contractually obligated to be ready to play, to participate, he would expect that. But I think he would also understand why what we've been talking about, both sides in this case need one another, at least right now. Now, it may play out. I mean, maybe, Anthony Richardson is well ahead and has a great run. Again, I'm not suggesting you count on this. I'm just giving you a hypothetical. Maybe we find out that everybody that suggested that you didn't need a running back of that level here, maybe they're proven right. But that's just going to be something that you're going to need to see before you believe it. It's not anything that you want to gather, oh, wait a minute, JMV was right about this. Because then that's situational NFL season football right there. I think I'm okay with saying football. I just can't say, how long do you say, a week? You can't say that stuff? Now, he should have stated, not only can you not say sports arousal or douchebag, but you can't say anything related to that. And that would have hosed me. Living in a world of exact words. All right, let me take a break. We'll come back. Jared G says, setting the mood nowadays, Netflix and chill. Michael Gigi says, your song selections made me realize I still haven't received my block party tickets yet. Let me give you a little background on that, Michael. Normally, these tickets don't come in until the week of. So you get back with me if we're like sitting on 48 hours until the show and you don't have it. Because everything is e-ticketed now, so they can give it to you like that. It's not something you have to come down here and park and then walk up here and get them. So you tell me if we're 48 hours, for example, away and you don't have them, and let me know, and I'll tear into somebody. But that's kind of how it works with e-ticketing now. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Tomorrow's show, we'll set that up for you. I think Stephen Holder of ESPN.com is going to be here. Chappell is going to be here as well. We'll talk about early in the week, kind of the stage the stage setter, if you will, for the week was, well, what the Colts could decide to go ahead and put Jonathan Taylor on the non-football related injury list and then not have to pay him. Both Stephen Holder and Mike Chappell had that story, which clearly came from the Colts. We'll talk about that and more with those guys coming up on tomorrow's show. Dave Chappelle ticket to give away again tomorrow, but before the end of this show, we have Yacht Rock Review tickets to give away. To number 9, when you hear a Yacht Rock re-entry, that's your cue to call Yacht Rock Review. That's TCU Amphitheater a week from Saturday night. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
So you're in the middle.
Lido. That is Yacht Rock, my friends. Yeah, Yacht Rock Review. Week from Saturday, TCU Amphitheater. Speaking of Lido Shuffle and Boss Skaggs, by the way, I'm not giving these tickets away, but I am going to go down to the Brown County Music Center and see Christian Webb doing a great job down at Brown County Music Center. I'm going to go down there tonight to see Boss Skaggs. What's funny about that is Boss Skaggs has 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 notable Yacht Rock songs, and 2 of which are Yacht Rock classics. You can maybe even add JoJo in as another Yacht Rock classic. So let's just say he has 3 in his catalog that would be considered Yacht Rock classics. And from what I have gathered in the past, he is not all too proud of that. I don't know why. Be proud of it. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. Hell of a staple right there. I would assume if you're thinking of your top 5 Yacht Rock songs of all time, I would bet that Boss Skaggs probably has something from his collection on there. Yeah, pretty big deal right there. Boss Skaggs, Brown County Music Center later on tonight. And I'm going to run down there with my friend Jeff Watson, and we're going to see Boss Skaggs. I kind of consider it this way. I'm not trying to be morbid whatsoever, but I was glad a couple of years ago. I went down in May. That was, I believe, a year ago in May, that we went down to see Gordon Lightfoot on a Friday night, because unfortunately Gordon Lightfoot passed away a little over, maybe even a year, under a year later. Yeah, I've never seen Boss Skaggs, so Boss Skaggs on the agenda coming up later on tonight. Brown County Music Center. By the way, too, speaking of the Brown County Music Center, you got 2 JMV shows coming up in September. So make sure you get your tickets. That's Warrant, Lita Ford, and Bullet Boys in September, Brown County Music Center. And then the other one, you get Richard Butler and Psychedelic Furs and Squeeze. You get some 80s new wave classics with both of those groups, and those are both JMV shows coming to the Brown County Music Center. And once again, if you've never been there, you got to check it out. It is a fantastic facility. Great place to go watch a show, and maybe it's just because it's really convenient for me where I live, but it's just a great drive. Get down there, and in this case, see somebody that I've never seen before. Put that on the resume tonight with Boss Skaggs. BrownCountyMusicCenter.com, I believe, is where you go if you want to find your way around to buy some tickets, too. Hey, by the way, tomorrow as well, Backyard Bourbon Broadcast winners. Hopefully you've signed up. 1075thefan.com to get a Backyard Bourbon broadcast in your backyard. We will announce our winner for number 1 this summer coming up on tomorrow's show, and we'll be at the winner's backyard on Friday. Yeah, we'll bring it too. Heaven Hill Distillery, Evan Williams. You got Bell's in there too, and Richard and Ford's Garage at the food. Backyard Bourbon Broadcast. Sign up now, 1075thefan.com. We'll pick a winner on tomorrow's show. James, thank you very much. Kevin Bowen, Matt Taylor, podcast 1075thefan.com. Holder, Chapel, and more tomorrow. Are we going to have, as a Reds fan, a Stuart Fairchild night? If we do, we'll talk all about that tomorrow.